It's explored in the 3D tutorial and often movements we can start to see and observe in the most accomplished and the most advanced players. Really how that lead hip moves through impact is often one of the more dominant threads we can see, for example, in often the more established players. So that lead hip elevation, that side bend, as we move into impact, how much that lead hip likes to move up relative to start position. So if I go to my start position, you'll see so that line here, my pelvis is kind of loosely speaking somewhat level. As I start to move in down, so it's actively using the feet as I push through that right foot, as I start to, or that trail foot, as I start to then elevate through the pelvis, I start to push into that kind of lead foot. How can we actively, you'll see here that line on, once again through my pelvis, that lead hip now is elevated relative to start position. And the caveat with this, it's done with rotation. What it isn't is simply just moving that lead hip up. It's actually being done with rotation. So I kind of face the camera now. As I rotate towards the camera, you'll see here again, using that line on screen, that lead hip is elevated, but my pelvis is clearly rotated along with that spine and rib cage into impact. So again, taking a very exploratory approach. How can we use the feet? How could we move the pelvis as it rotates into impact to encourage that lead hip to elevate? So a little reference we can also play with then is that round about a point of impact now, how that lead hip now sits on top of that lead foot and ankle. So that kind of lead foot, lead knee, lead ankle is somewhat aligned as you move into impact. So using that lead hip as a reference can be a very playful way, again, that lead hip elevation, that side bend in the pelvis, then really connect often to movements we often observe in some of the most advanced and most accomplished players.